Here, on a seemingly ordinary English farm, a profound story is about to unfold. This place is called Manor Farm. Its fields are green and its barns are old. But beneath this tranquil surface, there is a deep and abiding unhappiness. The animals that live and toil here are not masters of their own destiny. They are ruled by their human farmer, Mr. Jones. He is often neglectful, sometimes cruel, and takes the fruits of their labor without a thought for their well-being. Their lives are short, filled with hardship and devoid of the freedom they instinctively crave. It is a world of stark inequality, where the powerful few live off the efforts of the powerless many. This farm, in all its quiet misery, serves as a remarkable microcosm of our own world. Within its fences, George Orwell sets the stage for a powerful allegory. He wishes to explore some of the most fundamental questions of society. What does it mean to be free? Is true equality possible? And what happens when the noble pursuit of justice goes terribly wrong? The animals of Manor Farm are not just cows, horses and pigs. They represent the hopes and struggles of ordinary beings everywhere who dream of a life where their work is valued and their dignity is respected. Their story is a mirror held up to human history and human nature itself. The initial state of Manor Farm is one of quiet suffering and suppressed desire. The animals have a natural order, but it is an order imposed upon them by an outside force. The hens must give up their eggs. The cows must give up their milk. The powerful workhorse boxer must strain his muscles to their very limit, all for the benefit of Mr. Jones. This is the foundation upon which all revolutions are built. A shared sense of injustice and a yearning for something better. It is a potent, combustible mixture waiting for just a single spark to ignite it into a blaze of rebellion, forever changing the landscape of the farm and the lives of its inhabitants. Orwell chose this simple, rustic setting with immense care. A farm is a place of life, of cycles, of labor and reward. We can all understand it. This simplicity allows his profound message to shine through with startling clarity. He is not just telling a story about animals, he is examining the very structures of power that human societies have built over centuries. He asks us to look closely at who works and who benefits, who makes the rules and who must follow them. On Manor Farm, before the Great Change, the answers are painfully clear. The animals work and Mr. Jones benefits. And so the scene is set for a grand and tragic experiment in freedom. Every great change begins with an idea. On Manor Farm, that idea was planted by a wise old pig named Old Major. He was respected by all the animals. His long life had given him much time to think about the nature of their existence. One fateful night, he gathered all the animals in the big barn. He spoke to them not as a leader, but as a comrade. He shared with them a strange dream he had, a dream of a world where animals lived free from the tyranny of humans. A world where they were the masters of their own fate, enjoying the full richness of their own labor and living in perfect equality. Old Major's speech was the spark that lit the fire. He articulated what every animal had felt but could not express. He explained that their lives were miserable, laborious, and short because man stole everything they produced. He painted a vivid picture of their enslavement. He gave them a common enemy and a shared hope. The core of his message was simple yet powerful. All men are enemies, all animals are comrades. He taught them a song, Beasts of England, which became their anthem of freedom. It was a melody of a golden future time, a song of hope that spread through the barn like wildfire, uniting them in a single powerful purpose. This moment on the farm has a powerful echo in human history. It mirrors the moment when revolutionary thinkers like Karl Marx first articulated the ideas of communism. Marx, much like Old Major, described a world divided into classes: the oppressed working class, the proletariat, and the ruling class, the bourgeoisie, who owned the means of production. He called for the workers of the world to unite, to throw off their chains, and to create a classless society where all were equal. Old Major's animalism is a brilliant, simplified version of this complex ideology, making it accessible and showing how such powerful ideas can capture the hearts and minds of the oppressed. Tragically, Old Major died just 3 days after his speech. He did not live to see the rebellion he had inspired, but the seeds he had planted had taken firm root. His words lived on, giving the animals the intellectual framework and the emotional fuel they needed for the struggle ahead. The dream was no longer just a dream. It had become a possibility, a tangible goal to strive for. The animals now had a philosophy, a song, and a shared vision of a better world. The rebellion was no longer a question of if, but when. The quiet farm was now poised on the brink of a monumental upheaval. The rebellion, when it came, happened almost by accident. It was sooner and easier than anyone had expected. Mr. Jones, in a drunken stupor, had neglected to feed the animals. Their hunger grew into a furious rage. They could bear it no longer. Together as one, they broke out of their pens, kicked down the doors of the store shed, and helped themselves to the grain. When Mr. Jones and his men tried to assert control with their whips, they were met with a unified force they could not possibly withstand. The animals, in a stunning display of collective power, chased the humans off the farm for good. Manor Farm was finally theirs. A great sense of liberation swept over the animals. They were ecstatic. They galloped in a body right around the boundaries of the farm as though to make sure no human was hiding anywhere upon it. They explored the farmhouse, a place previously forbidden, gazing in awe at its unbelievable luxuries. But they wisely agreed that no animal must ever live there. To memorialize their victory and establish the principles of their new society, they created a set of unbreakable laws. These were the 7 commandments of animalism. They were painted in great white letters on the tarred wall of the big barn for all to see and remember. These commandments were the constitution of their new republic. They declared that whatever goes upon 2 legs is an enemy. They stated that whatever goes upon 4 legs or has wings is a friend. Crucially, they enshrined the core values of their revolution. No animal shall wear clothes, no animal shall sleep in a bed, no animal shall drink alcohol, no animal shall kill any other animal. All animals are equal. These rules were meant to be the permanent safeguard against the corrupting influence of human ways. They were a clear and simple guide to ensure their society remained fair, just, and true to its founding ideals. This period on the farm is a direct parallel to the immediate aftermath of the Russian Revolution in 1917. After the Tsar was overthrown, there was a period of great optimism and revolutionary fervor. New laws were passed, promising peace, land, and bread to the people. There was a genuine belief that a new, more equitable society could be built from the ashes of the old oppressive regime. The 7 commandments are like the early decrees of the Bolshevik government, idealistic principles designed to create a workers' paradise. At this moment, the future of Animal Farm and of Russia seemed bright and full of infinite promise. In the new society of Animal Farm, it was quickly agreed that the pigs were the cleverest of the animals. It was natural then that they should take on the work of leadership. Among them, 2 young boars soon emerged as the most prominent figures, Napoleon and Snowball. They were very different in character, and their rivalry would come to define the future of the farm. Snowball was vivacious and inventive. He was a brilliant speaker, capable of sweeping the other animals along with his passionate arguments. He was an idealist, constantly forming committees and launching projects to improve the lives of his comrades. Napoleon, on the other hand, was a large, rather fierce-looking Berkshire boar. He was not much of a talker, but he had a reputation for getting his own way. He was more cunning, more calculating, and far more ruthless than his rival. While Snowball was busy drawing up plans for windmills and organizing classes for the other animals, Napoleon was quietly biding his time. He showed little interest in Snowball's committees, believing that the education of the young was more important than anything that could be done for those who were already grown up. This seemingly noble idea masked a much more sinister long-term strategy for seizing power. This clash of personalities is a clear representation of the power struggle between 2 key figures of the Russian Revolution, Leon Trotsky and Joseph Stalin. Trotsky, like Snowball, was a charismatic intellectual and a brilliant strategist. He was a key architect of the revolution and believed in spreading the communist revolution worldwide. Stalin, like Napoleon, was a skilled political operator who worked behind the scenes. He was less concerned with ideology and more focused on consolidating his own personal power within the Soviet Union. Their rivalry was a battle for the soul of the revolution, and its outcome would have devastating consequences for millions of people. On Animal Farm, the tension between Snowball and Napoleon grew with every debate. They disagreed on almost every point. If one suggested sowing a bigger acreage with barley, the other was certain to demand a bigger acreage of oats. Each had his own following, and the farm's meetings became battlegrounds for their opposing viewpoints. The other animals found themselves taking sides, often swayed by Snowball's eloquence one moment, only to be intimidated by Napoleon's quiet intensity the next. This division at the very top of the new leadership was a dangerous crack in the foundation of their new society, a crack that one of them would brutally exploit. The greatest point of contention between Snowball and Napoleon was the windmill. Snowball, with his characteristic enthusiasm, proposed a magnificent project. He envisioned a windmill that could generate electricity for the farm. It would power lights and heaters for the stalls and run machinery to make the animals' work easier. He painted a glorious picture of a future with a 3-day work week where animals could enjoy leisure and improve their minds. The windmill became a symbol of progress, of a brighter, more modern future for Animal Farm. It was a testament to the power of their own ingenuity and labor, a monument to their freedom. Napoleon, however, scorned the idea from the very beginning. He argued that the animals needed to focus on increasing food production immediately. He claimed that if they wasted time on the windmill, they would all starve to death. The farm became deeply divided over the issue. During a final, decisive debate, Snowball delivered a powerful speech that seemed to win over the crowd. But just as the vote was about to be taken, Napoleon let out a high-pitched whimper. In response, 9 enormous dogs, the puppies Napoleon had secretly raised, burst into the barn. They charged directly at Snowball, who was forced to flee for his life, escaping the farm by a hair's breadth. This violent expulsion of a rival is a direct parallel to Stalin's expulsion of Trotsky from the Soviet Union in 1929. Stalin, having consolidated his power within the Communist Party, branded Trotsky an enemy of the state and had him exiled. Similarly, Napoleon, with his private army of dogs, eliminated his only rival, seizing absolute control of the farm. In the aftermath, Napoleon declared that the Sunday morning meetings would end. All decisions would now be made by a special committee of pigs, presided over by himself. The era of open debate and democratic participation was officially over. A new, more brutal form of authority had taken its place. In a stunning reversal, Napoleon later announced that the windmill would be built after all. He claimed, through his eloquent propagandist squealer, that the plans were actually his own creation all along. He alleged that Snowball had stolen them from him. This rewriting of history became a common tactic. Snowball was transformed from a revolutionary hero into a dangerous traitor and saboteur. Whenever anything went wrong on the farm, a collapsed wall, a poor harvest, it was blamed on Snowball's secret agents. This created a climate of fear and suspicion, much like Stalin's purges in the 1930s, where any opposition was crushed and imaginary enemies were used to justify extreme measures. Among all the animals on the farm, none was more devoted to the cause than Boxer, the cart horse. He was a creature of immense strength and unwavering loyalty. He was not the most intelligent animal, but he made up for it with his tremendous work ethic. He adopted 2 personal maxims. I will work harder, and Napoleon is always right. Boxer represented the ideal worker, the honest and hard-working citizen who believes in the revolution and is willing to sacrifice everything for the common good. He poured every ounce of his energy into building the windmill, seeing it as the key to the promised paradise. As the years passed, life on the farm grew harder, not easier. The animals worked longer hours and received smaller rations than they ever had under Mr. Jones. Yet Boxer never faltered. He would rise earlier than anyone else and put in extra hours of volunteer labor. Even when he split his hoof, he refused to take a day off, working through the pain. He was the backbone of the farm, the living embodiment of the revolutionary spirit. The other animals looked up to him, inspired by his strength and his simple, unshakable faith in the leadership of the pigs. His dedication was a constant, powerful force holding the farm together. This tireless devotion, however, was not rewarded with the peaceful retirement he had been promised. One day, while working on the rebuilt windmill, Boxer's lung collapsed. He fell, unable to get up. The pigs, led by Napoleon, expressed great concern. They announced that they were making arrangements to send him to a human hospital in the nearby town of Willingdon to receive the best possible care. The animals were relieved, believing their noble comrade would be treated. But as the van arrived to take him away, Benjamin, the cynical old donkey, read the words on its side, "Alfred Simmons, horse slaughterer and glue boiler." The animals watched in horror as they realized the truth. Boxer was not being sent to a hospital. He was being sold to the knacker's yard to be boiled down for glue. His death would be used to buy a case of whiskey for the pigs. This moment is the ultimate betrayal. It shows the absolute moral corruption of the ruling pigs. They had exploited Boxer's loyalty to its absolute limit and then discarded him for profit. This tragic end mirrors the fate of the dedicated working class in many totalitarian states. Their sacrifices build the system, but they are ultimately expendable to a leadership that cares only for its own power and privilege. With Napoleon in absolute control, the most powerful tool for maintaining his rule was not his vicious dogs, but the manipulation of truth. This task fell to a small, fat pig named Squealer. He was a brilliant talker with a way of skipping from side to side and whisking his tail that was somehow very persuasive. Squealer was Napoleon's minister of propaganda. His job was to justify every action of the pigs and to convince the other animals that they were better off than ever before. If rations were reduced, he would call it a readjustment, not a reduction. He would read out long lists of figures proving that food production was up by staggering percentages, even as the animals' stomachs rumbled with hunger. One by one, the 7 commandments, the sacred laws of the revolution, were secretly altered. When the pigs began sleeping in the farmhouse beds, the commandment, "No animal shall sleep in a bed," was found to have been changed to, "No animal shall sleep in a bed with sheets." When the pigs started drinking alcohol, the commandment, "No animal shall drink alcohol," was modified to, "No animal shall drink alcohol to excess." The animals, with their poor memories, could never be quite sure if the rules had always been that way. Squealer's constant reassurances and the threat of the dogs were enough to quell any doubts. The truth became whatever the pigs said it was. This systematic distortion of reality is a hallmark of totalitarian regimes. Propaganda machines like those in Nazi Germany under Joseph Goebbels or the Soviet Union work tirelessly to control the narrative. They create a version of reality that serves the state's interests. History is rewritten, statistics are fabricated, and language is twisted to rob words of their original meaning. Orwell, who witnessed these tactics firsthand during the Spanish Civil War, understood their terrifying power. When a population can no longer trust its own memory or perception, it becomes incredibly easy to control. The animals of the farm were trapped, not just by fences, but by a web of lies. The ultimate act of this historical revisionism was the complete transformation of their founding principles. The 7 commandments were eventually erased from the barn wall entirely. In their place, a single new commandment appeared. All animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. This cynical phrase perfectly captured the grotesque hypocrisy of the new regime. It was the final, formal abandonment of every ideal the revolution had stood for. Equality, the very soul of animalism, was now officially dead. The pigs had not just broken the rules, they had rewritten reality itself to justify their absolute supremacy. Years passed. Many of the animals who remembered the days before the rebellion were dead. The farm was more prosperous now, but only for the pigs and the dogs. The other animals still lived lives of hardship, working tirelessly on the windmill and the fields, never seeing the promised rewards of leisure and comfort. The original ideals of the revolution were a distant, hazy memory, a story told to them by their elders. The pigs, however, had grown fat and prosperous. They had learned to walk on their hind legs, carry whips in their trotters, and subscribe to human newspapers. They were becoming indistinguishable from the oppressors they had once overthrown. The final, chilling scene of the story brings the farm's journey to its complete and tragic conclusion. The other animals, drawn by a sound of laughter, peer through the window of the farmhouse. Inside, they see a shocking sight. The pigs, led by Napoleon, are hosting a dinner party. Their guests are the neighboring human farmers, the very beings they once declared their mortal enemies. The pigs and the men are drinking, playing cards, and making speeches. Mr. Pilkington, a human farmer, proposes a toast to the prosperity of Animal Farm, noting that its lower animals do more work and receive less food than any animals in the county. Napoleon, in his reply, announces a series of changes. The farm will no longer be called Animal Farm, but will revert to its original name, Manor Farm. The revolutionary customs, such as calling each other comrade, are to be suppressed. The boar's skull that had been nailed to a post in honor of old Major is to be buried. The pigs have completely disavowed their revolutionary past. They have shed every last trace of their former identity and embraced the very system of exploitation they fought to destroy. The revolution has come full circle, ending precisely where it began, but with new masters in charge. As the animals stare through the window, a quarrel breaks out between the pigs and the men during their card game. In the ensuing argument, something extraordinary happens. The creatures outside looked from pig to man and from man to pig and from pig to man again, but already it was impossible to say which was which. This final, haunting image is Orwell's ultimate warning. It shows that the lust for power is universal. It is not confined to one species or one political system. Without checks, without accountability, and without a vigilant and engaged populace, any revolutionary movement, no matter how noble its intentions, can be corrupted until the new boss becomes identical to the old boss. The story of Animal Farm is more than just a fable about rebellious animals. It is a timeless and universal cautionary tale. Orwell's message is a stark and powerful warning about the dangers of unchecked power. He shows us with brilliant simplicity how power corrupts. The pigs did not start out as tyrants. They began as leaders of a noble cause, but as their power grew, so did their greed, their selfishness, and their cruelty. They slowly abandoned every principle they once held dear until their rule became even more oppressive than that of the humans they had replaced. This is a pattern we see repeated throughout history, in nations, organizations, and communities. The book also serves as a profound lesson on the importance of knowledge and critical thinking. The other animals are subjugated not just by physical force, but by their own ignorance. They are unable to read the changing commandments. They are too trusting of the official narrative spun by Squealer. Their inability to question authority, to remember the past accurately, and to see through the lies makes them easy to control. Orwell is telling us that a healthy society depends on an educated and engaged citizenry. We must be able to think for ourselves, to challenge what we are told, and to hold our leaders accountable for their actions and their words. The lessons of Animal Farm resonate just as strongly today as they did in 1945. We see its echoes in political systems where propaganda masks corruption and leaders rewrite history to suit their own narratives. We see it in the corporate world, where a company's noble mission statement can be betrayed by exploitative practices. We even see it in smaller communities or personal relationships, where one person's dominance can silence others and destroy a sense of equality. The farm is a microcosm of any power structure, and its story is a reminder that the slide into tyranny is often a slow, gradual process made up of small compromises and unprotested injustices. Therefore, the final message of Animal Farm is a call to vigilance. It urges us to protect the freedoms we have. It reminds us that justice and equality are not guaranteed. They are fragile ideals that must be constantly defended. We must pay attention to the language of our leaders, question the narratives we are given, and participate actively in the systems that govern our lives. The story of Boxer, Napoleon, and Snowball implores us never to become complacent. For the moment we stop paying attention, the moment we blindly trust those in power, is the moment the pigs begin to look indistinguishable from the men.